Hey everyone, and welcome to another Explainer. Today, we're going to unpack a biological process that basically dictates almost every single aspect of your health, your recovery, and your longevity. We're talking about inflammation. But instead of just demonizing it like we usually hear, we're going to break down exactly how your body's alarm system works, why it sometimes glitches out, and most importantly, how you can take back control. All right, here is our roadmap for today's Explainer. We've got the body's alarm system, acute versus chronic inflammation, rethinking injury recovery, the anti-inflammatory diet, supplements that fight inflammation, and finally, lifestyle, sleep, and chill. Let's dive in. Part 1. The body's alarm system. To really get this, we kind of have to fundamentally shift how we view inflammation right from the jump. See, inflammation isn't inherently the enemy. Actually, without it, even a tiny paper cut could be incredibly dangerous. I want you to think of your body like a giant building, and inflammation is the fire alarm. When there's an injury or some kind of infection, your immune system pulls that alarm. It rushes emergency responders, specialized cells and fluid, straight to the site to start the repair process. So that telltale redness, the warmth, the swelling you get after, say, spraining an ankle, that is just your acute alarm doing exactly what it's supposed to do to protect and heal you. Part 2. Acute versus chronic inflammation. Now, this brings us to a pretty critical twist. What happens when that protective alarm glitches and just refuses to shut off? There is a really sharp contrast here. Acute inflammation is this short-term, highly localized superhero. But chronic inflammation, that is long-term and systemic. It is literally like a fire alarm ringing constantly in the background, keeping your entire body in a perpetual state of high alert. And when those inflammatory chemicals just stick around forever, they actually begin attacking healthy tissues. That slow, systemic damage is linked to a whole host of issues, things like heart disease, diabetes, and autoimmune disorders. The systemic toll of a stuck alarm is honestly surprising. We usually think of inflammation purely as, physical joint pain or swelling, but chronic inflammation secretly impacts our brain and our mental health too. A constantly active immune response can heavily influence depression, anxiety, and mood disorders by completely altering how our brain processes stress and emotion. Plus, it totally disrupts your metabolism. If you've ever dealt with really stubborn weight fluctuations or this deep, lingering fatigue, well, your immune system might be working overtime fighting a non-existent threat. This throws your hormones completely out of whack, and it can lead to totally unexpected changes, like stubborn weight gain or even rapid weight loss. And man, it wreaks absolute havoc on your digestion. Chronic inflammation can trigger frequent gastrointestinal complications. It throws off that super delicate balance of your gut microbiome, which then, of course, only compounds the full body stress. It's a real vicious cycle. Part 3. Rethinking injury recovery. So knowing all this creates a massive shift in how we actually handle acute injuries. For decades, we were all told to use the RICE method for soft tissue injuries, right? Rest, ice, compression, elevation. Well, actually, scratch that. You can throw that out. Current sports medicine science has shifted entirely to the Peace and Love protocol. The A in Peace stands for Avoid Anti-Inflammatories and Ice. Why? Because modern science proves that suppressing that necessary acute inflammation actually impairs your long-term tissue repair? No way, right? But your body needs that short-term inflammatory response to rebuild strength. We've got to stop fighting the good fires with excessive ice and NSAID painkillers. Part 4. The anti-inflammatory diet. So while we definitely want to let acute inflammation do its job, we desperately need to extinguish the chronic inflammation. Our practical toolkit for doing that starts right on our plates. The standard modern diet is honestly just packed with pro-inflammatory triggers. Things like refined grains, added sugars, heavily processed meats, they just keep that biological alarm ringing. But by making some super simple daily swaps, like choosing omega-3 rich fatty fish like salmon over a hot dog, or using extra virgin olive oil instead of heavily processed vegetable oils, you can fundamentally cool down cellular inflammation. You are literally changing the chemical signals your body sends out after every single meal. Part 5. Supplements that fight inflammation. Sometimes diet alone just needs a little bit of a boost, and that brings us to targeted nutritional support. Just a quick reminder to always source your supplements from reputable, third-party tested facilities and, of course, check with your doctor first. But there are some incredible hacks here to target inflammation. Take curcumin, that's the active compound in turmeric. It is deeply anti-inflammatory, but get this, it's poorly absorbed unless you pair it with black pepper. We also have bromelain, which is an enzyme found in pineapples that actually has the same anti-inflammatory capacity as NSAID painkillers, but without those harsh gastrointestinal side effects. Then you've got fish oil for EPA and DHA, resveratrol from dark berries, spirulina, and garlic, which is packed with a super potent anti-inflammatory agent called allicin.
Part 6. Lifestyle, Sleep, and Chill. All right, now we are moving into the free, lifestyle-based habits that literally alter our inflammatory markers at the cellular level.
50 to 59 degrees Fahrenheit. That right there is the absolute sweet spot for cold water therapy. Research shows that immersing yourself in water at that temperature for just 10 to 15 minutes triggers massive systemic changes. Your blood vessels constrict and you actually suppress pro-inflammatory molecules. In fact, regular cold plunges at this temperature can reduce inflammatory cytokines like IL-6 by up to 35%. It essentially trains your immune system to mount a much more controlled response. But listen, you cannot outplunge poor sleep. Getting 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep acts as your body's ultimate overnight healing system. During deep sleep, your body releases growth hormone to repair tissues and actively lower inflammation. During REM sleep, your brain processes emotional stress, which prevents those nasty cortisol spikes. Sleep even activates the glymphatic system in your brain, essentially flushing out inflammatory waste products. If you are sleep deprived, your body immediately goes into stress mode, releases extra cortisol, and keeps that chronic alarm blaring. And finally, let's talk about an incredibly powerful, totally free tool you can use anywhere: soft belly or diaphragmatic breathing. This isn't just about relaxing, okay? It is pure biology. Taking slow, deep breaths that expand the abdomen directly stimulates your vagus nerve. This forces your nervous system to shift out of that stressed fight-or-flight sympathetic mode and right into the restorative, anti-inflammatory parasympathetic mode. It genuinely lowers levels of pro-inflammatory mediators and enhances your body's natural anti-inflammatory response. So, after unpacking all of this, I want to leave you with a pretty provocative question to chew on. Is your body's alarm system currently healing you, or is it stuck on high alert? I challenge you to audit your own lifestyle. Look at your plate, look at your sleep habits, and rethink how you manage those acute injuries. You now have the knowledge and the toolkit to make sure your internal alarm is functioning exactly as nature intended, protecting you when you need it and staying perfectly quiet when you don't. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. If you found this breakdown helpful, please hit that like button, share this with someone who really needs to hear it, and subscribe with the bell icon so you never miss our structured learning sessions. And hey, if you are dealing with persistent pain or recovering from an injury yourself, be sure to visit Dr. Gangadhar Physiotherapy and Rehabilitation Center for expert, evidence-based care. Keep learning, keep optimizing, and I will catch you in the next explainer.